So I thought a couple days ago when Trump came out with his position on abortion, I thought he did a good job. He was never going to please everyone when he made that statement, but he got it out of the way, and I think it's now behind him. It didn't get a lot of coverage in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina, you know, Governor, the battleground states, the states that are going to decide this election. But this morning, I'm looking at some of the local news coverage from all those same states, and they're all talking about Arizona and how doctors could be put in jail for 5 years and how this is so extreme. So even though this is not a Trump position, this is the state Supreme Court, this is something that Trump might have to answer to or answer for in November. Even Kari Lake, Axios had some reporting this morning that Kari Lake, who's running for the Senate out there in Arizona, ran away from this. She said that it's not in line with the way that Arizonans feel. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that the Supreme Court ruling in Arizona, which goes back to an 1864 law, is one that troubles some people. And it could provide some political problems for Republicans. But on the other hand, I think it's a job for all of us who are pro-life to explain that I don't know of anyone who personally thinks that we ought to be putting doctors in prison or that we certainly never should take women and put them in prison for abortions. But we ought to change the culture. I think ultimately this is not a matter of just forcing people into one view or another. It's changing the mind of Americans to have respect for life and to believe that the child with Down syndrome is equally valuable in the eyes of God as is the captain of the football team. That's where I want to see us go. It's when we have a healthy respect for human life and we don't think that any human life is disposable, worthless, and simply shouldn't even have consideration as a human being and given respect and value.
Yeah. Governor, I want to play you a soundbite. This is Joe Biden. This is several years ago. This is 2006, back when he was in the Senate, talking about abortion. Again, this is President Biden. It doesn't look like him or sound like him, but this is President Biden, we think.
I do not view abortion as a choice and a right. I think it's always a tragedy, and I think that it should be rare and safe. And I think we should be focusing on how to limit the number of abortions, and there ought to be able to have a common ground and consensus as to do that. I think the vast majority of the American people think that can be done, but unfortunately, we're put in a position you either eliminate abortions under all circumstances, or it's quote abortion on demand.
You know Joe Biden, Governor, and I'm just wondering, that soundbite's from 2006, not from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
When did the Democratic Party go from pro-choice to pro-abortion? What happened to Joe Biden?
Well, once they decided that they were going to completely sell out to the most radical extreme left, they just gravitated that way. There was a time when there were a lot of pro-life Democrats. It was common in their party, some for religious reasons, others just for common sense and maybe for electoral purposes. But the point is, it used to be an issue upon which there was not that wide of a divide. I can remember Bill Clinton talking about abortion should be, he would use the term safe, legal, and rare. Well, Democrats don't want rarity. They want it to happen all the time. They call it health care. There's nothing healthy about an abortion. It's not healthy for the mother, puts her at great risk, but it's certainly not healthy for the baby. It kills the baby. Nothing healthy there. So what we have to do as Republicans, and I think as common sense Americans, is help say, look, we recognize some people won't agree with those of us who are pro-life, who believe life begins at conception, and we ought to protect it. But for gosh sake, do you really want to side with Joe Biden where he is now?
Yeah.
That an abortion can happen up until the moment of birth? Is that really a humane and an act of a civilized society? For heaven's sakes, it is not.
Yeah.